Hi, have you all been doing? Have you been feeling kind of overwhelmed lately? This has been a particularly rough week news wise, and that feeling of overwhelm catches up. What would you want to do about it? What action could you take? Sometimes I just feel like hibernating, especially yesterday. In New Orleans, it was 31 degrees. I am from New York. I'm used to cold weather. I've lived here long enough to feel that chill. These are things that normally just go with the flow. But it just was one more thing that hit hard. Have you been doing? Have things been hitting you hard? The holidays can be a tricky time. It's great to get together with your family and your friends and to celebrate. There's a lot to celebrate. And sometimes we lose track of that because of things that we see and hear. And I've been trying to figure out a way to ground myself, to feel more attached to the people I love, to the things I like to do. The temptation to turn off and just stick my head in the sand is great, very great. But instead, I decided, me, to write a book. And this isn't about the book per se, it's about taking action. And it's been difficult to do that. I was fortunate to be with a group of people who were writing their books at the same time. So we had a support system. It was extremely motivating. And shout out to Jim Edwards and copyandcontent.ai. They really helped me through this particular mission that I had. At the beginning, I wasn't sure what I was going to write about, but I knew I wanted to do something positive. I wanted to help people know that whatever we're going through right now, we've been through stuff in the past and come out okay, not unchanged. Change isn't always a bad thing, but change is usually traumatic. And I could say we've been through some trauma. I think we're going to go through some more. But the point of writing the book was to say, I've experienced this in my life. And here I am. I'm sitting here, I'm with you, and I'm writing a book. What would you do to ground yourself? What kind of creative endeavor would you think about? I love to bake. I love to cook. And sometimes the creativity shows up that way. I have friends who like to sew and they make beautiful, beautiful garments and things for the house. Their creativity shows up that way. My daughter loves to crochet and she's made these awesome little animals. They're really adorable. And she does it for herself. She does it, she gives gifts, but it's to let that creativity show itself. And while you're doing whatever creative act you're doing, your mindset changes. You're going with the flow. You're going with that creativity that kind of blocks out any news, any bad news, these negative feelings that we all experience. I know this has been a particularly rough week, and there's so much that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Once you get into a creative flow, you get a little mini vacation from that. And while you're doing that, you are creating something you don't have to show to anybody else. You don't have to let the world know. You don't even have to let your friends know if you don't want to. You're doing something to feed your soul. You're doing something to make you feel that this one thing matters. It matters to you. And that is what is important. Taking care of your mind and your soul right now, especially at this time of year, is crucial. I have my little book, and it's over here. And the thing that I love about this book, I made it a small book, and they're anecdotes. They're little things that happened during my life. And because I've lived a long time, I thought reflections on things that happened to me. I mean, I remember growing up, and I remember growing up in the 50s, and my mom always had a radio on. There was always something on. She loved music, and she had a lot of the 40s music naturally because that was her really important time in her life. And she liked Frank Sinatra, but she also had the news on. At that time, in the early 50s, the Korean War was still going on, and my dad was a World War II vet, and they were really serious. Whenever that news came on, we had to be quiet. The kids had to zip it. And we could see how seriously our parents were listening to this news. We had no experience of a war, but they did. They knew what that meant. And we just respected their seriousness because as children, we understood what the war was as far as stories that were told, but we had never experienced firsthand what a war is. And things like that shape you as a child and as an adult. You have different ways of dealing with different situations because of your personal experience. A lot of younger people today haven't experienced the things that I have, and their filter is different than mine because their experience is different than mine. And that's something that I really needed to take a step back and understand, to know that just because this is my filter doesn't mean it's everybody's filter. And it shifted my mindset. I started to listen more. Everyone has opinions. That's natural. But sometimes, if you just listen, you don't have to contribute to the conversation many times. Sometimes listening itself really can solve a problem. And that problem is usually understanding where someone else is coming from. I don't agree with many of the things I see and hear. And instead of trying to change somebody's mind, I think the best thing for me to do is to lead by example. And that's one of the reasons I wrote the book. I just felt, what could I do that's positive, that could contribute to healing, to understanding, to knowing where somebody else's perspective is, and first understanding that, and then seeing how many things we have in common rather than the things that divide us. Because, truth be told, we have so much more in common than the things that divide us. Fear is a terrible thing, it's a powerful weapon, and it can be used against us. And one way to overcome fear is by knowledge. Opening your mind is not always easy. I can testify to that. But baby steps, one thing at a time, doing something for your neighbor, with your neighbor. When you're working together toward a common goal, all the differences are put behind. I remember my dad talking about the men he served with during World War II, and they came from all different parts of the country, and they had very different attitudes about many things. But the thing they had in common, they worked together as a team. They fought together as a unit. And fortunately, he had four friends. Well, there were four friends together, and they were called the Bath Boys. And because of the initials of their names, it was Babian, Archer, Trancho, and Hagen. And they remained friends after the war, and they built their lives together as friends and as comrades in arms. They had this common experience that united them, even though they had different paths in lives, very different paths in lives. They still remained friends. It's a lesson that's only learned by experience, only by living your life. So, the important thing, my takeaway, is listen to your neighbors, listen to your family. You don't have to agree with them. And sometimes you do have to distance yourself. It's important for your mental health. Taking care of yourself is the most important thing you can do, especially during this holiday season, by doing something that takes you away from the news, that takes you away from upsetting conversations, doing something creative. Write a book. If you don't want to write a book, paint a picture, crochet something, bake something special, something you really like to do. Whatever you decide to do, remember to take care of yourself and tune out the news as much as you can. Cherish the people you love. Tell them you love them. Tell them how much you care about them. It is cliche to think that no one is promised tomorrow, but that is true. So please spread a little love, and most of all, spread the love to yourself. Give yourself a big hug and turn off the news. Create something special for yourself. I'm thinking about you and I care about you. It's Vicki Trancho saying, enjoy each and every day.